I'm so excited to introduce you to our next guest because he's a genealogist.
You have it right.
Philip looks into where we belong, where we come from, our roots, basically. Lovely to meet you, Philip.
Thank you. It's nice of you to ask me along. Yes, that's right. I've been doing this now for something over 10 years. And I sort of got into it more or less by accident. I've always liked investigating things from my previous work. So I went to Oxford University and I did a study on historical research. Then I started looking at tracing families who are entitled to inheritances worldwide. You may know that, well, take England for example, nearly 2/3 of the population don't leave a will. So what happens? The money goes to the government, unless it's claimed within, in the UK, 30 years. In Scotland, 10 years, and in other countries, about 10 years. So unless beneficiaries come forward, the money stays with the government.
And I suppose with families being so segregated and over the world, it's very easy to lose contact with your family members.
It is now. I mean, gone are the days, if you go back even 50 or 60 years, families tended to live within maybe a 25 or 30 kilometre radius. But now, since cheap travel, I mean, they're everywhere.
Yes, most of them are here in the Costa del Sol.
A lot of them are down here. In fact, I have maybe a dozen cases at the moment based here in Spain.
So is that what your main work would be, chasing inheritance?
Yes, mainly. Although I do family research of people who've got, you know, anything that's a little bit interesting. Like someone the other day wanted me to prove that they were related to Captain Cook. And they probably are.
Fascinating case.
And they probably are.
But how would you even begin to research something like that?
Well, you've got to really trace back. You've got to look at, first of all, what evidence they're going to give you. I mean, the most important thing about doing family research, and it's something that I tell everybody, the very first thing you need to do is to go and talk to people, friends, family, and write everything down. Because in hindsight, you then think when they've all died, hey, I should have asked Aunt so-and-so about her relatives, and I didn't, and now it's much harder for me to research. So you've got to work back, and in the case of Captain Cook, really go back to where the guy was born and start looking at all the local records there. The trouble is, this lady probably was related to him, but he had a child out of wedlock, and in the 1700s that was not good news. They were sent off to other villages, so it's difficult always to prove these things. You can often find a connection, but proving it is another thing.
With DNA and all these tests that we have nowadays, is that obviously it makes things easier to prove things? Can you really tell where we've come from with a simple DNA test?
Yeah, that's an interesting one, because DNA has really started to take off in the last 2 or 3 years. There are 3 main companies involved in doing DNA. The Y chromosome is carried forward from father to son and doesn't change very much. So you therefore can trace distant relatives going back centuries from your DNA. The difficulty is that it depends on the amount of information that they have stored. So you take, for example, Ancestry, who are one of the biggest companies in this field. They've taken 7 million DNA. They've done 7 million DNA tests. So they can only give you information based on the 7 million other people that they know about. The 2 things that DNA will tell you, it will certainly tell you who your distant relatives are, and often you get a great long list. It will also tell you your sort of geographical makeup, which is somewhat more interesting. I mean, people think they're 100% Scottish, and they find they're only 10% Scottish.
Yeah, I saw from actually one of these videos they did, and it was fabulous, because you saw this really English guy.
Yeah, that's right.
And he really wasn't into Germans, and it turned out it was...
I remember the video.
Wasn't it very cool?
I've seen that video. That was very good.
I've got goosebumps just remembering it, because it really...
Yeah, me too. And in fact, in Britain, for example, the people who consider themselves British, they're only 36% British on average.
Yes, and we all come from these pillaging and raping Vikings, don't we?
Well, we certainly do. I mean, a classic case is if you look at, there are 16 million men in Asia spread around Mongolia who all have the same Y chromosome as Genghis Khan. So 16 million. There was also interestingly enough, there was an Irish Genghis Khan who was a warlord, 1,500 years ago. There's between 2 and 3 million men who have his chromosome.
It really makes you think.
So it makes you think. Yeah, that's so it's very useful. But I mean, you have to read these things a bit carefully and bear in mind that it's only as good as the information they can compare it with. I guess it's like a piece of music. It becomes more clear the more you sample it. So I think that's the same with DNA. It's a hell of a useful aid.
You said that you got into this, it was like a follow-on from what you did before. What did you do before?
Well, I was in the computer business and I was very much used to looking and creating databases. And then maybe 40 years ago, I was in Army intelligence. So I've always had that interest in finding out about things.
You're like breaking grounds and everything, obviously, when you were doing things like starting new fields.
Yeah, I think so. It can be a disaster as well as an asset. Being too inquisitive, as my father used to tell me, is not the great thing, because you tend to concentrate on everything. I walk down the road, and I mean, most people on their phones are looking down at the pavement and walking into lampposts. I'm looking up at the buildings and the art and everything else, and still walking into the lamppost. So yeah, it's inquisitive. Being inquisitive is not always a good thing.
Well, I think it's, as long as there's like the happy balance.
Yes, that's right.
So you're now based in the Costa del Sol?
Yeah, absolutely. Been here for the last at least 15 years. I travel quite a bit as a result of my work, because the sort of cases I take on are really cases across continents. So I had a case last year, for example, where I had to research in 13 different countries just for one case, because, as you mentioned earlier, people move around, and this family certainly did. So there's a lot of travelling and there's a lot of research in different countries.
You must get to meet some fascinating people.
Yes, you do, and I suppose that by the very nature of the work, I mean, if you're looking for people whose families who have no family or no recorded family, then of course there's usually some issue with the family. They had a problem, or there's been some scandal, or there's been something. And you do meet some fascinating people.
What was the most remarkable case that you've studied?
There are too many. In terms of sheer concern, last year I traced 3 beneficiaries to an estate, and the 3 beneficiaries were in Argentina. 2 were professional people in Buenos Aires, and 1 was 350 kilometers down the track farming a 1-acre cabbage patch. Now, they were entitled to a £1.1 million estate from the UK, and they didn't want the money. They just did not want to know, and they don't want any contact.
How interesting is that?
That is interesting.
It's one thing, obviously, to have those ties that are so broken that you don't even want the inheritance.
Yeah. And the other case last year, a lady who died in Weston-super-Mare in Somerset in England, who'd lost quite a bit of her memory before she died. The staff in the nursing home were always amused because she was very regal. She always claimed that she was related to Lord Lucan, the heir who disappeared after the murder of the nanny. And in fact, when I did some research, sure enough, she was related to Lord Lucan. So these things always come as a real surprise. So yeah, there's lots of interesting cases. I guess the most difficult one I've had is the one where I had a family who moved from Scotland in the mid-1800s and went to Hong Kong. And I couldn't trace relatives. The Hong Kong records were destroyed in the 1940s, so you then have to go to other things. So I went to the newspaper records, and in fact what I've done subsequently is I have scanned every English language newspaper in Hong Kong and China from 1850 to 1914, so I can now search for things that of course you can't get from the official records. I traced this family from Hong Kong. The father at the time had divorced. I found the divorce records in Shanghai. He'd been in areas of Shanghai that were not particularly desirable, and his wife found out and she threw him out. And then I completely lost track of where he went. I found a daughter who'd moved to California, and I thought, wonderful, I found a beneficiary. And I traced the last beneficiary in California who had died a few months before I got to locate her. 6 months went by and his name came up in Kenya, and to cut a story short, I traced him to Kenya. He'd remarried and I found a sole heir to the estate in Australia. So it went round all these countries, and that's what happens.
What a terrible life this man has, travelling around the world looking for people to inherit money, amongst other things. Philip, it's been an absolute pleasure to meet you.
Very nice of you to ask me.
Fascinating is an understatement.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to be here.
And if you need services of Philip, there you have him, living in the heart of the Costa del Sol for the moment.
Lovely. Many thanks.
Thank you so much. From the 5th to the 11th of June, Marbella is going to be in Feria. The whole of Spain has these ferias, these typical festivities that normally are to do with the patron saint of the city. Marbella has San Bernabé. So from the 5th to the 11th of June, everyone will be dressing up in flamenco clothes. The streets are going to have parades, people will be dressed up, there'll be loads of food, loads of drink. It's going to be really, really fun. And us foreigners should get involved. It's a great cultural experience and one of the beauties of living in Marbella. The main event goes in the Alameda Park in the centre of town. In the evening, everything goes to another venue behind La Cañada shopping centre for all the fair rides and like the nighttime events. But during the day, it's the Parque de Alameda. There'll be loads of food, loads of drink, loads of dancing, loads of things to do. So do go to one of the many dress shops in Marbella and buy yourself a flamenco outfit, or go to one of the charity shops. Last year, I picked up an amazing dress in the Deborah charity store. Take part in the Fair of Marbella. You will have so much fun. Ole.
Hello again, Marbella. It's Amanda from Silken Sin here, invited by Nicole King to help deal with Marbella's problems and issues they might have. Now, today's issue is one that's both common and controversial, and it's been sent to me by a lady called Julie. And Julie's friend, she's known her for quite a while, they're quite close friends, there's a group of close friends, ladies at lunch together. But Julie's friend's husband is having an affair, and it's actually common knowledge. Most of the other girlfriends know and most of the husbands know, but of course the lady whose husband is having an affair doesn't know. Now Julie's quite close to her. She's not what you'd say is a best friend, but she's very, very close to her. And they have a close relationship and they've known each other for years. And this affair has been going on for about a year. So it's something that's serious, it's not a flash in the pan. And Julie wants to know, does she tell or not? Now, what a question. That's a very, very difficult one to answer. A, there is a question that if she does tell, she might bring things to a head where they would have faded away. Maybe the adulterous relationship was going to end anyway, and if the lady whose husband is being playing away from the home, shall we say, is faced with that, then that will cause extra rifts within the relationship. B, they might get back together again, it all comes out, they get back together, and then Julie's the bad girl. Julie's the one that caused problems within their relationship by bringing this to their attention. But I can understand why Julie's worried. Because what happens if her friend does find out and turn around and says to Julie, why didn't you tell me? You knew all this time, everyone knew all this time. And she would feel very foolish, as I'm sure we all understand. And I think most of us would say, men and women, that they would like to be told. If I was a woman, I am a woman, and my husband was having an affair, I'd want to know. I think most men, if their wives or girlfriends are having an affair, they'd like to know. But it's not as simple as that. So we're really asking you, Marbella, please let us know what you think. Contact me, Amanda at silkensin.com, or through Nicole at Marbella Now, because we really need to help Julie on this one. My first reaction is, don't say anything, wait and see, maybe give it another 6 months. Maybe speak to the husband quietly, or ask her partner to speak to the husband quietly. This has also brought up issues for Julie that, well, If her friend's husband can be unfaithful for a year and her friend doesn't know, her husband could be being unfaithful as well. And that's another issue for Julie. And I'm saying, well, why are you so jealous? If you didn't know, would you be jealous? But it's an extremely complex question. And as I said, my first reaction is do nothing. When in doubt, do nothing. I know I'm all for confrontation and communication, but in this case, do nothing, wait and see. And we really would like to hear your opinions on this, and I'm sure some of you have gone through similar situations. Well, thank you very much. So that's Amanda@silkensin.com or via Nicole at Marbella Now. Anyway, I look forward to speaking to you again soon, and have a great week, and thanks for listening, and it's bye from me, Amanda. Goodbye.
Feeling totally zen here in the pharmacy. It does feel like home. Come in, meet the team, come and try some of the fabulous food. It's just delicious. Whether you're a vegetarian or vegan or not, it makes no difference. The food is delicious. The atmosphere is great. You've got Wi-Fi, everything you need. In the shopping centre El Capriccio, right here in Marbella, they'd love to welcome you. Thank you so much also for joining us on Marbella Now. We love introducing you to the local people who make up our fabulous international community. If you want to check out recordings of this program, the radio, my column in the Euro Weekly, visit our web, marbellanowtv.com. We will see you next week. Take care of yourselves. Be nice to each other. Y hasta mañana.